Grace and peace, if I can be heard, please type a 7. Let's give it a move. What's up, Greg? As always, all praise and glory to Jah our Father and His only begotten Son, Jehoshua Messiah, the Nazarite of Jah, who died for our sins that we may have eternal life. Shabbat Shalom. Let us pray. Our Abba, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, Jah. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us for our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us out of all temptations, and protect us from all evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever, and the authority and love of your Son, Jehoshua, our Savior. We always pray, Jah. So be it. One love to all who are just joining for this deep lesson. Today is the 9th day of the 12th month Adar for the year 6222 from creation, from origination, equivalent to Gregorian January 14th, 2023. Here we are on the 9th, and next week is going to be that weekend there. You can see the 14th and the 15th and the 16th, so to speak. That weekend is the Feast of Purim. We'll do a little bit of reading, I think, that evening, Thursday evening, might do a read, and we'll focus a little bit on the Sabbath on Purim that way, but it's something that you can read for yourself as well. It's not too long of a book that way, dealing with Mordecai, Esther, and whatnot. As always, be sure to study the name for yourself. We use the name Jah and Jehoshua or Joshua. We recognize that many people have a controversy regarding the J sound and the letter J, how it only came in supposedly 1500 years ago. But the J sound, the sound of the J or soft G, has been since languages began. That's a lie. However, we use Yah, Yehoshua. We recognize Yahweh Shai, Yahusha, Yahshua, Jesus, the Lord, Christ. All the names and titles you see on the screen, we know that those are other individuals in the world who have to do their own studies on the name. And as we say, if you want to truly show that you know the Most High's name and you know His Son's name, then make sure you keep their commandments in love and truth and worship them in spirit and truth. This is a revelation of the true scriptural months of Jah's almanac or his calendar. Now, I did a little bit of a lesson before, it might be on my channel somewhere, called, I think, Moon and Month, where it was focusing on just the identifications of the words new moon and, new month and Kodesh and Yeriach and Selene, all the translations of the words, in this area of trying to get the months. But what I'm going to do exclusively today is we're going to go right to the scripture. We're going to prove Jah's almanac by looking into the Bible. We're not going to look in the sky at all. Jah's almanac is fixed, it's set, and we can, with reasoning and spiritual understanding, get the formation of the months from the Holy Scriptures. That's right. So I look forward to doing this. This is a diligent study. I'll try to go at a smooth pace. I'm not going to rush it, even if it goes over to next week. And I mean, for the rest of the month, again, we're going to be focusing on calendars anyways. But I know that this topic, I think it's one of the most important and hardest to kind of explain, because we're going to show months from the Bible. So you're going to have to use a little bit of your understanding and look at things, lots of charts to deal with in this area. If there are any questions or comments regarding this area, feel free to put it in the chat. Shabbat Shalom and welcome to all who are joining us. Shabbat Shalom, Auntie Elma, Winston, and all those who are out there. I see Chris, Greggy, Jennifer, Andrea, and all those who may be coming in. These understandings come from David Ray, who passed away in the year 2019, and he had written wrote 5 books regarding the Most High's Almanac, as you can see on your screen. These will be things we'll be talking about over the next few weeks as well and getting more into it. But it's a great revelation of Jah's Almanac, and I'll just leave it at that. So we're going to look at Jah's set and fixed scriptural calendar and holy days. Now, the whole idea of following Jah's Almanac is to keep his holy days. And we're going to read that his holy days are set fixed on the day of the week. So when we say set, they're set upon the proper date of the month, on the proper day of the week, forever, and they don't change, they don't wander. Passover will always begin on like the first day of the week, so to speak, with the 15th of Abib being that beginning of that night, that week. And it'll last forever. And it was like that in the beginning as well. Be sure to check out my last lesson on the 20-year cycle, so you can kind of get an understanding of how calendars work and formulate, and how we're able to go back in time and into the future, so to speak, to see which calendar or what the dates are of any calendars that were, in play at that time, and in particular Jah's Almanac and all of the holy festivals. So when we look at this word set feast, it's one word called moed. It means appointed place, appointed time, meaning, appointed time in general, a sacred season, a set season, appointed season, appointed meeting, appointed place, appointed sign, even the tent of meeting. Now, one thing I have to say about this word moed, and I'm not going to go into it today because it's regarding seasons and festivals. And I've seen that there's been a play with regards to the translations of this word set feasts or feasts and the word seasons to be moed. So like when you read Genesis, it says that the sun and let the sun, moon, and star be for signs for seasons, days, and years. They put moed there, and people will teach that that means it's the festivals that have to be kept, right, from Genesis chapter 1, verses 14 through to 16, I think it is. But that word really refers to just the season, the seasons of the earth that we have. So we'll get into that, another time, not today. And just let me bring up a couple of scriptures, and just give me 1 second here. I have to attend to my cat. Okay, let us read Nehemiah 10:33. For the shewbread, and for the continual meat offering, and for the continual burnt offering of the Sabbaths and of the new months, for the set feasts and the holy things. So we can see again the word set feasts, Sabbaths, new months, relating to most of Jah's holy times. Ezra 3:5. And afterward offered the continual burnt offering, both of the new months and of all the set feasts of Jah that were consecrated. 2 Chronicles 31:13 at the bottom there again. Burnt offerings for the Sabbaths and for the new months and for the set, fixed, non-movable feasts, as written in the law of Jah. So the point here is letting us know, like, everything is set. Just like how the 7-day Sabbath is set on the 7th day of the week. It's not a part of a solar observation. It's not a part of a lunar observation, even though many people keep lunar Sabbaths greatly in error. There's no such thing as a lunar Sabbath, so to speak, even though they try to make it up and use it, but that's folly. And much less even lunar months don't even exist in Jah's months. So in this lesson, I'm not going to be talking about what the months aren't, supposed to be lunar and all that. I'm just going to get right into the scriptural thing, stick on, that topic right there, because I do know that, if people can catch this, if you can catch it and get a good understanding from it, it'll set a great foundation in your mind, and to even help you to see the rest of, Jah's Almanac in different ways, because it is a topic, and calendar topics, not a lot of people are into calendar topics. So the language and the charts and the following of numbers, a lot of people aren't number people that way as well, may, seem a little bit daunting that way. But again, stick with it, pray to the Most High. And for those out there who know calendars, and might be leaders, and know you use the Enoch calendar, lunisolar calendar, and about your your time frames and chronological time frames that way, well, this is good then for you. And I pray that you also take time, take a look, because this is quite a revelation from the Word. Ecclesiasticus 33:7 reads, "Why does one day excel another when all the light of every day in the years of the sun? By the knowledge of Jah they were distinguished, and he altered seasons and feasts." So this here is just letting us know that it's Jah, even though every day is by the sun, so to speak, the sun rises and sets and all of that. But Jah is what distinguishes, who distinguishes, making a day holy or just a regular day. Some of them hath he made high days and hallowed them, and some of them hath he made ordinary days. So this is like the Sabbath and all of the festivals. They occur on days of the week, but he made them special by his presence and his decree and his declaration and his consecration. He did these things. Nothing about the sun, moon, and stars at all. Shabbat Shalom. Welcome on One Love. So we have these 7 holy pillars and convocations of Jah. And because we're dealing with a set calendar and set feasts, these are pillars or anchors, I can call them. So I believe that the festival, the first day of the year, is an anchor, always on the first day of the week. And then we're going to have the 7 festivals also are anchors, along with the waving of the sheaf that will let us know the formation of months and the distances from here and what day of the week these festivals actually fall on. So let's get into it. You may know these things. There's 7 holy convocations. We have the first day of Passover or unleavened bread. And we're not going to talk about the differences between Passover and unleavened bread because there really is no difference. But people, when we read the scriptures, and I have to cover it a little bit today, a lot of people get it mixed up. They say like the Passover is one day, 24-hour period, and then 7 days of unleavened bread follows that, kind of giving you 8 days. That way, but it doesn't work that way. It's just 7 days, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But as we get into Passover coming up in February, remember February we're dealing with the Passover, and in particular it'll probably be around February 20th or so, 15th, around there, when we're going to be observing the Feast of Passover, drinking wine, Jennifer. 7th day of Passover and the sheaf. The day of Pentecost, our first fruits, or the Feast of Weeks. And remember, the spring feasts represent the Messiah's first coming, and the fall feasts represent his second coming. Messiah was not born during Tabernacles. He was born on the day of Pentecost, the Feast of First Fruits, in lambing season, in the springtime. Then we have the Day of Trumpets, or the Memorial Trumpets, which is the first day of the 7th month, along with the Day of the Atonement, the fast, the first day of Tabernacles, and the 8th day of Tabernacles. Now, a lot of people might kind of view these kind of festivals in a different understanding, especially maybe when it comes to Passover / unleavened bread that way, and even keeping the Feast of First Fruits. If you don't have a fixed calendar, you can't keep it properly. So if you keep a lunar calendar and then you want to try to keep the Feast of Festival of First Fruits or Pentecost, they're attached. And so you can't have one without the other. So if you mess up Passover, you mess up Pentecost, and which is most of the world, 100%, almost every calendar out there outside of Jah's true almanac is an erroneous calendar. I know it's kind of boasted that way. It's not a braggadocious thing. It's really, I'm concerned about getting the word out there. And I pray that you can help as well, spreading the word, learning these things, praying. And if there is any errors, feel no way to kind of, share it with me some way. Come at me, not fighting that way, but say, hey, what about this and what about that? And I've did most of the studies that I can over the many, many, many years. Like I say, over 25 to 28 years, probably somewhere in that range, of looking at these things. So that's what I have to say as a precursor. Now let's get into it. Now, there are other anchors as well. These other pillars are anchors. The first day of the year, as I said, is always on the first day of the week. Cannot be any other day of the week. The last day of the year, then, by default, is always on the 7th day of the week, which is the Sabbath. That's how Jah's almanac works. It's a perfect set calendar. The Feast of Dedication in the 9th month is also evidence of Jah's scriptural calendar, which we'll cover. And only the 7th month begins on the 7th day of the week by Jah's perfect design of sevens. So everything that we speak about today is this dealing with sevens and being fixed. So what am I saying here? That Abib, which would be equivalent to February, is 28 days long, all the time, forever. And all these following months, even though we have the Gregorian equivalent, these are the number of days in the months of a common year. And when we add them up for the common year, we get 364. If you want to learn a little bit more about the common year and sabbatical years, please, check out last week's lesson, the Revelation of Jah's Almanac, as it does focus on the 28-year cycle, which is very important. But as you see, every day here is fixed. They're allotted. There will never be no more or any less days throughout the year. Throughout the years, I should say. So we know that Jah's Almanac has 12 months, and the common year is 364 days. And again, we just showed you the amount of days in each month. The first month, which is very important to know, has 28. It's the only month that has only 28. The rest are 31 and 30, because 28 is the square foundation of Jah's Almanac. And then we have our seasons also divided up. You could have 13. You're going to hear the term of 13 weeks would make up basically a season. 13 times 7 is like around 91 days, which is an average amount of days for a season. If you have 4 seasons, if you want to count it in 2 seasons, with just the hot season and the wet season, so to speak, we'll have like about 182 days or 180. It's a little bit of a difference, but it's basically, half of a year, 364, right? Half 364 is 182 that way. So these are how the seasons operate, just on a basic level. And so what you can do for yourself, if you want to on your own time, try to find a calendar you can print out. I don't know if you can screenshot this and then print it out, but with nothing on it, right? So, and this is what we're going to try to do. We're going to try to build Jah's Almanac, starting from scratch. We're going to have the foundation of a 7-day week really being the establishment of Jah's Almanac all the way through. And we'll, be able to start to fill in this blank calendar to where it will look something like this, right? And this is what we want to do. And again, this is Jah's Almanac, always showing it. Remember the 28 days for the first month, Abib. Then we have 31 and 30 days. So what I'm going to be talking about today, if I get through it, for the most part, is this saying, well, how do we know that Abib has 28 days and that it starts the first day of the week? And how do you know that it ends on the 7th day of the week, right? So 28 days, how do you know it ends on the 7th day of the week, that month and beginning? And then how do we know that the second month begins on the first day of the week and has 31 days? How does the third month begin on the 4th day of the week and have 30 days? Why does the 4th month begin on the 6th day of the week? And you see what I'm saying? So every month here, I'm going to try to prove why it's that day of the week. It can't be any other day of the week. That month has to be that, that amount of days, so to speak. And we're not looking up in no sky. We're not looking at the solar cycle. We're not looking at no lunar cycles, no Maserat cycles, no sidereal years or anything of that. It's pure, straight scripture and a little wisdom from Jah. And you call it logics if you want. All right. So Jah's months have 28, 30, and 31 day months. So let's build the almanac from the Holy Scriptures using spiritual reasoning. Psalms 90:12 says, so teach us to number our days that we may apply our hearts unto wisdom. So yes, we should be numbering our days, not just, how long we're going to live or what we're going to do, because that's very important. You got to utilize your time. And if I were you, seek Jah every day, always doing something towards progressing his kingdom, because when time goes by, you won't be able to get it back. And Jah's going to ask you how you used your time. And so I know I've wasted a lot of my time, probably half of my life, on folly and foolishness, right? And still you're tempted to even waste time in the world now with all the internet and social media. And short videos and all of that stuff to try to keep your attention for hours. It's amazing how a short video keeps people linked in for like hours, eh? But we have to apply wisdom here. And even when we're dealing with the Most High's calendar, it also, you need wisdom to apply. And remember, 7 is the number of wisdom. Daniel 9 reads, "In the first year of his reign, I, Daniel, understood by books the number of years, whereof the word of Jah came to Jeremiah the prophet, that he would accomplish 70 years in the desolations of Jerusalem." So, what I'm utilizing here is, again, looking what Daniel is utilizing. Daniel's a great prophet, and we can see that he understood by books. And what books were these things? These were the scriptures, right? Because that's what was in play at that time. Judge holy books were, the Torah was in play. And we can see even that Jeremiah's writings were there as well, because he says, wherever the word of God came to Jeremiah the prophet, that he would accomplish 70 years. So this is something that Daniel looked into. He looked into Jah's word for these truths, for time frames of chronology and prophecy, when the Messiah is going to come, and all of these things. He utilized scripture, and that's what we have to do as well. And notice that he understood by books the what? Number of years. No calculation outside of Jah's word. So Jah's months have 28, 30, and 31-day months. The so-called lunisolar Hebrew calendar uses 29 and 30-day lunar months. This is not scripturally supported at all, but is actually exposed as not being the Most High's calendar. So we're going to get into a little bit of an understanding here about this flood count dealing with 29 and 30 days. And so I'm going to just talk, this is probably the only time I'm going to talk about the lunisolar calendar. But what I want to prove right here is that Jah's months have 30 and 31 days. And outside of the first month with 28, the rest have 31 and 30. And that's important. But when you deal with a lunar calendar, they have 29 and 30 days, going back and forth. And sometimes they even switch the order of them. So this count here, I wanted to use just to show that, you can't have 29 and 30-day months in Jah's almanac, because it won't match up with his words. And so therefore, the whole calendar is actually, locked down and thrown into the garbage that way, just by Jah's words exposing them. Genesis 7 reads, "In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the second month of the 17th day of the month, the same day were all the fountains of the great deep broken up, and the windows of heaven were opened." So focus on here now the dates. So there's going to be 2 dates with the time period in between. So we have the second month, the 17th day of the month. Shalom again to those coming in. Shabbat shalom. Verse 24 of the same chapter. "And the waters prevailed upon the earth 150 days. And the waters returned from off the earth continually, and after the end of the 150 days, the waters were abated," or they went down. "And the ark rested in the 7th month, on the 17th day of the month, upon the mountains of Ararat." So what do we have here? We have the 17th of the second month as one date, and then we have basically 5 months later, the 17th of the 7th month, a date. In between these dates, we have, it says 150 days. So it says that after the end of the 150 days, the waters came down. And it says that the ark, in verse 4, the ark rested on the 17th day of the 7th month. So what do we see here, just simply in order? We see that we have the second month showing up, the 17th of the second month. Then we have the 150-day period beginning from the 17th day of the second month. And then we have the 150 days ending, and then comes the 17th day of the 7th month. So second month starts, we have 150 days. After the 150 days, we have the 17th day of the month. Hope you're with me now. Now that's important to know. So what we have here is that the 150 days comes to a conclusion before we get to the 17th day of the month. So we got to make sure that if we're going to have a calendar that operates within these scriptural parameters, that at least it has to match up with that the 150 days comes first, and then we get the date of the 17th of the 7th month. For example, if we have the 17th day of the 7th month coming before that 150 days is over, then that wouldn't match up with what you see in front of you. Second month, 150 days, 17th of the 7th month. All right. So we're going to look at the lunar months of 29 and 30 days. So the lunar calendar, as I said, has 29 and 30-day months, which is not scriptural nor in sync with Genesis 8. And when you put everything together with their months, their common year only equals 354 days, 10 days short of Jaws 364, perfection. So what we see here on the screen is from the second month of the lunar calendar, right? Their second month has 29 days. Their third month has 30 days. Their fourth month has 29 days. Their fifth month has 30 days. Their sixth month has 29 days. Their seventh month, well, we don't have to worry about the ending of it, but if it was 29 in this month, we know that this month, the seventh month right after, would be 30 days. That's their pattern, 29, 30, 29, 30. So what we have is we have the top left, we have our 17th day of the second month, and that will be day 1 of our count to 150. Now, just for your information, everything that's highlighted in yellow from the 17th all the way through to the 150th at the right bottom calendar, that's 150 days. So everything that's in highlights is 150-day count, but we're still utilizing their months. So we see that we have our 17th day of the second month starting. Boom, we go through all the days. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, blah, 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 blah. Then what we do as we're going through, we have now the 17th day of the 7th month showing up on their lunar calendar. But then 2 days later, we have the 150th day. So there's a problem here because remember, Genesis 7, it says, and after the end of the 150 days, the waters were abated, and the ark rested in the 7th month on the 17th day of the month. So what we're seeing here is that, well, the 150 days in their lunar calendar, this is why this calendar is false, is because the 17th day comes before the 150 days are over. So remember, the ark is floating on the waters, and the waters are going down and down, right? And the ark is going down with it. And then it comes to like a rest on the 17th day of the month. That 17th day of the month is supposed to come after the 150th day of the month, because the waters have to come down before it rests on the 17th day of the month. Because right now it wouldn't be resting, would it? It'd be still floating up there. And then it's like later on, the 150 days would come, a couple of days later would come. So for the fact that you use 29, 30, 29, 30, and 29-day months would not match up with the scriptural calendar if you use a lunisolar calendar. That's just a fact. You can't add anything to it. You can't make the days longer. You could even, if you wanted to start the second month and make it have 30 days, and the third month had 29 days, none of it would make a difference at all. So just a simple test here, 29 and 30-day months can't work. Any calendar that utilizes that kind of calendar falls short. Let's continue now. Look at Jazz months of 28, 30, and 31 days. Same kind of look here. Jazz Almanac has 30 and 31-day months, which is scriptural. We're not including the first month. So the same thing we have here. We have our 17th day of the month being the first day of the month. Hold on here. Sorry, I got to turn this down. Did I make a mistake? Okay. Yes, I'll change that later. So Bridget was telling me, sister was telling me on this side. So this one here, this side is supposed to be 8-3. Thank you, Andrea. And you might as well do it now, otherwise I won't do it later. Sorry. Thank you though for hitting me up. I put it on my phone on quiet now. So that was 8-3. Where are you? Oh, there you are. All right. Here we go. Thanks again. Here's our count. So again, uh, this is day 3. Yeah, this is the lunar calendar. So now, and I did it again that time. So 2 times I copy and pasted it. All right. So we're just gonna leave this one. This Genesis here is supposed to be Genesis 8 as well. All right. But I'll get back to that after. So we see our count. Second month. It's the 17th year. 150 days is in the yellow, and then we get to the 13th of the 7th month, and that's the end of the 150 days. And then we see 4 days later, we have the 17th, right? So this here is how it's supposed to work with the scripture that you see below. After the end of the 114th, then we have the 7th month. But what I've also noticed, and I'm not going to bring up the calendar now, because I want to have a section on the prophetical calendar. This is also counting a prophetical count, because it's dealing with Jah's end of the world, basically, and all of that deals with prophecy. And there's a prophetical calendar that of 360 days that has 12 months of 30 days, but it's not used to worship Jah like on his Sabbath day or his holy days. It's just utilized as a time frame of counting years. So like when Daniel said he understood by books the number of years, he'd be calculating it through the 360-day prophetical years that way. But it's still, it goes with Jah's almanac, but you just got to use that for that count. And so I bring that up because when you do a 30-day month in this same scenario, it works out same way, and you'll have the 13th day of the month, and right after it, or it actually comes to on the prophetical calendar, the 150th day is the 16th, and the day following is the 17th. So it too is perfect. So you can have a 31 and 30-day calendar, and you can have 30-month day calendar dealing with prophecy, but you can't have 29 and 30-day months. So that's very important to catch. So remember, we have these time cycles of Jah's almanac. The 364-day common year is divided up into 24-hour days. The weekly cycle, the 12-month yearly cycle, the 4 3-month seasonal divisions, and the winter rain and summer dry seasons. And you can see the numbers there for you to utilize, work out your 364. And this is not not the Enoch calendar. Remember that, it's Jah's almanac. So now we're going to get into Abib, the first scriptural month, which is only 28 days, and we're going to use the scriptures to prove that. So by doing this, showing, Abib has 28 days, again, it shoots down any lunar calendar, it shoots down the Enoch calendar as well, or any astronomical calendar, because this count is based strictly off of Jah's counting and the way he highlights days. Just as we know, all the days are the same, but he makes them special. Well, he does this by numbering special days. All right, so let's get into this. So Abib, the 28-day month, is also tied to the 28-year cycle. And remember, the 28-year cycle is a cycle of perfection of 10,227 days. You'd have to watch last week's lesson on that. It always starts on the first day of the week, like creation week. That's where we get it from. And so even when we talk about building Jah's almanac, we're just going to use Genesis 1. Start right from there. We're not going to go anywhere else and try to figure out right from Genesis chapter 1:1, which, again, is all about the creation week of 7 days. We don't have to read those 7 days, but we know that the first day of creation began on the first day of the week because the Sabbath was the 7th day from that first day of creation. So Abib always ends on the 7th day, the Sabbath. That's the 28th day. Abib only has 28 days, no more nor less. Abib is the foundational cornerstone of Jah's seasons, his months and years. If Abib didn't have 28 days, it would start to throw things off. It's like you're building a foundation, a house. Jah's 28-year cycle is patterned off the foundation of the first month Abib. It has 4 Sabbaths. That means the 28-year cycle. And Jah's 28-year cycle has 4 sabbatical years. So Abib has 4 Sabbaths, and Jah's 28-year cycle also has 4 sabbatical years, if you remember that from last week. So these are the foundations, and let's look into this. Here's Abib. You can see that we have all these scriptures, Genesis 1 through, right? Then we have also Leviticus. We're going to utilize Leviticus a lot for this understanding, because you can see that the first month of Abib has many festivals in it. So again, just looking at it simply, Genesis 1:5 is day 1. We don't have to read that. We know day 2. We know that Genesis, the day 7, is talking about the Sabbath that way. So we see that it has 28 days, and now we have to discuss it and show it with reasoning. Okay, like I said, 28-year cycle is the same thing like how Jah's first month of Bib. We did that last week. That chart's from last week, so sorry to move from it. So looking from the foundation of Jah. The Most High's calendar was regiven in Egypt before the Exodus and the law. It's foundational. Exodus 12:1. And Jah spoke unto Moshe and Aaron, saying, and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, this month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. Not a moon, but a month. And the Most High's calendar was first given, as I said, at creation in the beginning. So it's even more foundational. Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, Elohim made the heaven and the earth. Then we read the verse 5, and the evening and the morning were the first day. So this is important. Creation of time began on day 1. It did not begin on day 4 when Jah made the sun, moon, and stars. So the creation week is foundational. Sevens is what's running things. So, the weekly cycle is going to be unbroken throughout the whole year. It's not going to interfere with the festival. It's going to work in harmony with Jah's festivals perfectly. But many people teach that the calendar begins on day 4 when the sun, moon, and stars were made. And that's why you get your equinoxes and solstices and your lunar phases and your, sidereal months, utilizing the stars and all of these type of things, these stellar months. But none of these things are so. They're for signs, seasons, days, and years, yes, but not for months, not for weeks, and not for festivals. Those things are absent in that verse, even though people say that seasons means feasts. But that's not what Jah instituted at all there at that time. Okay, so again, we have this chart again, a little bit more unique, and just want to let showing you again a bib here where it says 28. That's a bib, right? That's the first day of the week, 114. I talked about this before. So, like for example, the month Judah, the 4th month, equal to May, has 31 days in it. It begins on the 6th day of the week, and that would be Friday. So I'm just showing you how to read this chart, and we're going to again explain why the second month begins on Sunday, why the 7th month begins on the 7th day of the week. Everything that you see here will be explained if we can get to it. All right. So here's this is how I'm going to do it. I have to break it down. So of course, we're going to talk about months, but we're only going to cover like the first 3 months, right? As a section, because we want to focus, a little bit here. And so by saying that, this here, what you see on your screen is also the first 3 months, but it's now highlighted in a more vertical way. So notice here that Abib, day 1, this day 1 is the days of the week, right? Abib 1 starts on the first day of the week. We teach that it ends on the Sabbath, the 28th day. So that means we're showing that Ziph will begin on the first day of the week. We're going to show that it has 31 days and ends on the 3rd day of the week, and that the 3rd month, Sivan, begins on the 4th day of the week and has 30 days. So this here is the same as this. Again, 28 days, 31 days, 30 days. The 1st, 2nd, and 3rd months. What we have here is the festivals. The Sabbaths are all in red. Then we have a count to Pentecost beginning from this 28th, or of the Sabbaths. The actual count begins from the 22nd. And we have the festival of first fruits on the 12th of the 3rd month, with also the other Sabbaths coming in. So it's just good for you to understand. This is the same thing. All right. But What I like about this way is that you can see the unbrokenness of the 7-day weekly cycle. So when it gets down to Savan and it gets to the 30th day at the end of the month, you see there's two gray boxes below. Well, that first gray box is going to be the first day of the fourth month. And then, of course, the second day. But we're only calculating the months so you can see it. So this here from the top to the bottom is 13 weeks. From a bib one, there's like 13 boxes here dealing with one season. And let's call this season the latter rain season or spring, or the harvest season can be also called as well. Then we have months 4, 5, and 6. And again, notice again, these months 4 starts on the 6th day of the week or the Friday. 5th month starts on a Monday or the second day of the week. And the fourth day of the week here for 6. So we're going to, again, there's 31 days here, there's 30 days here, there's 31 days here. So we're going to look at that also in a seasonal way. And now here's the same thing I just showed you with the first season. Now here we are with summer, the same way. This is the first day of the first month, of the fourth month that we just saw, 31 days. This is the first day of the fifth month, Dan, and then we have the 6th month, Elul. As you can see, these days here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, those days, right, they belong to the month that was above. So you notice that this day 6 here, Judah, it's like the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah. The fourth month, Judah, starts on day 6. So I'm going to go back quickly again right to here. And so that means, remember, the fourth month, Judah is on day 6. We have our first gray. So Judah would be right here. The fourth month would be right here. Again, keeping everything in sync. And notice now at the bottom here in the gray, that will be the first day of the 7th month, because this is month, in yellow is month 4, pink is month 5, Elul is month 6. And so that means the 7th month starts on the 7th-day Sabbath. And this is another anchor. According to Jah's word, the 7th month always, forever, will begin on the 7th-day Sabbath. No other month in all of the 12 months begin on the 7th-day Sabbath at all. It's not beautiful. It's perfection, actually. The rest of the months, they can begin on various days of the week. There's about 4 months maybe that begin on the first day of the week, about 2 or 3 that can begin on the second, and vice versa, right? But when it comes to the Sabbath, only the 7th month is the beginning of that month for that Sabbath there, for that month. So we have here again, this is now the 7, 8, and 9 months, Ethanim, which is a holy month. And this is how it is again, looking at it from that weekly cycle, so to speak. So remember, we just spoke about Ethanim beginning on the Sabbath, and there it is, going down to day 31. Then we get to the 8th month Bull, 30 days. Then we get to the 9th month Kislev, 31 days. I'm showing you what I'm gonna. It's like I'm showing you what I'm gonna show you. I'm showing you what I'm telling you what I'm gonna show you. But we will use Bible verses to help us get this understanding. But I've tried many years to try to do this, and this seems like the best way I can do it to break it down, to make it digestible. And now we have months 10, 11, and 12 at the bottom, Tebeth, Sabat, and Adar. Remember that the equinoxes and the solstices are always in the middle of Jah's seasons. They're not the beginning of the astronomical seasons with their, their paganism that they have around the vernal equinox with their Easter and their astronomical Aprilis Passover, so-called Passover, and then the winter solstice with their Christmas and their astronomical Hanukkah, because they deal with a lunar calendar as well that's tied to these things. But they are the middle, not the beginning. Right? Not at all. Almost precisely the middle. But we're not talking about that today. So again, here's the last few months. Sabat, the 10th, 11th, and 12th months. 30, 31, 30. Okay. When we're looking at this now, we're just going to cover now. Well, up top, you see, right here, we have the first 3 months. That's what we're going to deal with. And then we have the second set of months, second season, of 4, 5, 6. And then we're going to cover months 7, 8, and 9. It's almost like I'm going over everything I just went over. Tebeth, Sabat, and Adar. So I just put these 3 months together. So again, you can see there's highlights. I will be going back and forth with these things. And I think we're set now with an understanding of Jah's almanac, how it's formulated. Now we're going to have to prove why it's this way. I think so, at least. So wisdom has builded her house. She has hewn out her 7 pillars. So you know that 7 is a big thing that we deal with, the 7-day weekly cycle. And 7 is just prominent in Revelation. 7 horns, 7 locks, 7 angels, 7 stars, 7 churches or assemblies. I mean, it goes on and on. 7 festivals or holy days. So again, looking at this, if you were to look at the arrow at the top left, and say it's pointing to the blue up there, that would be like a bib 1. So first day of the week. And then if you point down at the bottom here, at the right, the 7th day, 364 would be on the 7th day of the week. So here is this, with no numbers, because you wouldn't be able to see the numbers. So let's put it this way, this is like 52 weeks in the year, right? And I just wanted to show that there's 52 weeks in the year. They're divided up into the pillars of 7, which is the weekly cycle, as you can see, 1 to 7, and that the last day of the year, the 364th day of the year, would be on a Sabbath as well. So just kind of bringing that to your attention. Each little line is like a date, right? So we have our 13, what I just showed you, our box of our one season, 13 weeks in a season. Remember, 13 times 4 is 52. 4 seasons in a year, so to speak, of 13 weeks long, approximately. With this chart, what I'm going to be using a lot, again, just notice it's 1 week right down to the 13th week. So there's 13 columns, or 13 rows, with 7 columns. 7-day weekly cycle, 13 weeks in a season. Any season we're talking about now, but in particular, we're getting into the first season. So again, you either have 13 weeks or Sabbaths in one season. 13 times 7 is 91 days average. A lot of numbers, but it's important. And I would encourage you to jot these numbers down. So remember, now we're again showing us 13 weeks still. This is for Abib, Ziph, and Sivan. Just letting you know, seeing how these things are going to grow. And again, we showed this already. This is Abib, Ziph, Sivan, and I'm going to be focusing on these 3 months. Yes, these 3 months. Abib, Ziph, Sivan. 28, 31, 30. Starting on the first day of the week for the Abib. Ziph starts on the first day of the week because Abib ends on the Sabbath, and Sivan starts on the 4th day of the week because Ziph ends on 3rd day of the week or Tuesday. We'd have to prove that. The first 3 months of Jah's almanac. All right. So we're getting into Abib. We have our first day, 7 days of the weekly cycle, right? So we're going to look at it this way, as a time period, that the time period between Genesis 1:5, 1 verses 1 through 5 is the foundation of various cycles of time. So the beginning, the first day of creation I'm talking about, the beginning of the true original calendar of time. It's the first dark night and daylight cycle, otherwise called a 24-hour genuine day. The first original day of the 7-day weekly or Sabbath cycles of time. It's the first day of the first month, called Abib. The first day of the first season, which we say spring or the latter rains. The first day of the 12th month yearly cycle. And the first day of this 7,000 yearly cycle of time. So this is what we mean. So we have the first week of creation and the second week of creation. So we're just going to look at it. All right, let's look at this together. Jah began creating on day 1. So that day 1 is, like I said, with that whole list, that's Abib 1, week 1, month 1, season 1, and year 1. It's a very simple, it's so simple that people don't like the simplicity of it. But it's this simple, but simple doesn't mean simpleton. It just means it's very precise and perfect and not going to be hard to understand in this area. So what would the next day be? That would be, of course, day 2, which would be Abib 2. We're still in week 1, still in month 1, still in season 1, and still in year 1. but we're in the second day. So, of course, as we do a count, we can see here day 3 is Abib 3. Now, day 4, although I put the X there, that's not when time began. But that's when most people who have astronomical calendars, solar, lunar, or stellar, so to speak, they'll begin their count from here. They don't begin it from the first day of the week. And then if they try to and still utilize the solar calendar or lunar calendar, nothing would jive with the festivals. It'd be out of whack. And this is why, those who follow an Enoch calendar, all of their festival holy days, because it's a set calendar as well, but the first day of Passover will always be on the fourth day of the week. And so they drop it like that when the first day of Passover is supposed to be on the first day of the week. So again, we're just counting basics, right? So the first week is done. Day 7, Abib 7, week 1. All right. So here we got it. Our first, we're building a calendar from 1 to 7. We have easily from the creation of time, the first week. No one can argue that. It's a pretty strong foundation. Now, when we go to Leviticus chapter 23, and I have to say this before I even read Leviticus 23, read Leviticus 23 in just chronological order or sequential order, because it really, all it does is it's talking about the first festivals of the year until the last festivals of the year. Leviticus chapter 23 is the festival chapter, giving us days and dates, so to speak. So you see that I have on the seventh day, I have Leviticus 23 verses 2 and 3. So let's go into this. Leviticus 23, and Jah spake unto Moshe, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them concerning the feasts of Jah, which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations, even these are my feasts. So he's going to talk about his feasts, right? Now, I like to read in order. So what's next? There's the first festival of the year, because it would be the first festival of creation too, wouldn't it? 6 days shall work be done, but the 7th day is the Sabbath of rest and holy convocation. You shall do no work therein. It is the Sabbath of Jah in all your dwellings. So we know it. Hey, first day, first festival of the year. Any given year, the first festival you should come across should be the 7th day Sabbath, right? It's a feast as well, believe it or not. It's a holy day, very important, and it's the foundation of Jah's holy days as well, because it's still based upon the number 7. So it's setting a pattern. So we got our first 7, and now we're going to get into the second week of creation and utilize Leviticus as well. So again, 6 days you work, 7th day, according to Leviticus 23, opening chapter, verses. Going back. So we're back with our day 7, the first week. Now the second week is going to be Abib 8th, the 8th day, because it comes after 7, but it's the beginning of week 2. But we're still in month 1, we're still in season 1, and we're still in year 1. And then, of course, when we just go through, we can easily use our mind to know Abib 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Keeping in our sequential, count here, our chronological count, we have Abib 14th also falling on a 7-day Sabbath. I mean, it's perfect, right? It's 14 days from creation. And the 7th, we have 14. So even if you look ahead, you would say, well, yeah, that means the third week could be 21. So now we're going to go read in Leviticus 2 about this 14th or this second week. So we read the first verses here. We already read that for the Sabbath, right? Now let's go to verse 4. These are the feasts of Jah, even holy convocations, which ye shall proclaim in their seasons. In the 14th day of the first month, at evening, is Jah's Passover, or it's the sacrifice of the Passover. And on the 15th day of the same month is the feast of unleavened bread unto Jah. 7 days you must eat unleavened bread. Leaven. So in verse 5, we see that it's at evening. Now, this causes a great controversy for when we try to set calendars or to observe the feast of Passover. Because is the 14th day at evening, does that mean the beginning of the 14th day at evening, which is like the end of the 13th? Or is it the end of the 14th day at evening, which is also the beginning of the 15th? Well, we can see that verse 6 helps to complement that for us. We have the 14th day of the first month at evening is Jah's Passover. So the 14th day, as the sun's going down, the lamb is slit. When it says Jah's Passover there, you should know, even when you look up the word, it's the sacrifice of the Passover. You're not eating it at that. That's, you have to kill it before you eat it. So this is the sacrifice of the Passover. And the word, yes, the word Passover can mean the lamb, the whole 7 days, the unleavened bread, the feast itself. You just have to read it within context. So you kill the lamb at the evening of the 14th, right? The sun going down, and then you're going to get ready to be eating it on the 15th, because that's the feast. That's, you're eating that lamb, and you eat it, right, with unleavened bread as well. So that's why when we teach about the Passover, we teach that the Passover and unleavened bread are one and the same feast. The Passover is just the name of the beginning of the feast. The first day of the feast is a high day. It's a preparation day. It's a holy Sabbath day. And it's the day that, the beginning when you eat the lamb. The 14th at evening is when the lamb is killed. And remember, the 14th day is also a 7-day Sabbath. So it almost makes perfect sense. Judge says, all right, you still keep your 7-day Sabbath. And then near the end of the 14th, when the sun is setting, when the day's almost over, now you sacrifice the lamb. And as it bleeds out, you're going into the 15th day, getting ready to roast it, beginning a weekly cycle. So that's me talking. And look at these things. Again, the Feast of Unleavened Bread, verse 6. And 7 days you must eat unleavened bread. So let's take a look at this, how we can. So we have our 14th day. And then let's say right at the evening there, just past, this is the same verses that we just read, right? The 14th day at evening. So the end of the 14th day. And then we're going to be going into the 15th day. So let's look at this for 3 weeks. So we covered week 1. We've gone into 14th day, and we're still kind of there. Ending of the 14th day at evening is the 15th day. I hope you can see that. So sacrifice the lamb right here. You begin eating it here in the nighttime after it's cooked with unleavened bread and bitter herbs for a week-long festival of 7 days. You see it? So the Passover on the 15th, and we're using like the creation calendar from origination with Leviticus. So you would have 7 days. That would be from the 15th until the 21st, right? That way. So here we are going slowly, but it's important that we catch this. Now, when it comes to the Passover, I am going to explain a little bit more with Jah's Almanac when the Passover comes. But if I were to take time now to go over too much about how you can get these dates right, it would take up too much time. But there's enough scriptures and enough common logical spiritual wisdom here, that we can see that, hey, all right, 7/14, bam, we eat it. And remember, some people will keep the Passover. They'll say that this begins at the end of the 13th. And then this whole day is like a holy day to them. It's like they'll call that the Passover, but you're supposed to eat it on the 15th. So you don't keep the lamb for the whole day, right? And then, no, you can sacrifice it. As they do, they sacrifice and eat things fresh, right? So again, the 14th, sacrifice the lamb. You eat it on the 15th, the beginning of the night. You can't keep it till morning. And that's the first day of unleavened bread, the first day of Passover, one and the same. Nothing really occurs on the 14th except at the end, the lamb is killed. And so if it was in these modern times, we don't kill a lamb. So the 14th is just a normal Sabbath day. But in the evening time, we prepare the Passover meal, not with the lamb. I mean, we could use lamb if you want, but not breaking the bones, everything. But if you want lamb chops or any meal that you want, but you'd have to have the ordinance of the unleavened bread and the wine at that evening, at that time. That's the correct time to do it. No other time it is supposed to be done. And if it's done in an unworthy matter, it's serious. It's the most holiest kind of thing to set you up for the year, that ordinance. It's a renewal of our covenant with the Messiah. All right. So we read up all of these verses already. Now we're going to go to verse 7. Notice it says, the first day you shall have an holy convocation, right? That's dealing with this 15th. You shall do no servile work there in verse 8, but you shall offer an offering made by fire unto Jah 7 days. In the 7th day is an holy convocation. You shall do no servile work therein. And then verse 9 says, Jah spoke unto Moshe, saying, but we'll leave that for a second. All right, so we have verses 7 and 8. The first day shall be a holy convocation. We're back at our 15th again. So yes, Passover slain at the end of the 14th. In the 15th in the night, You eat that lamb. It's a holy convocation. No servile work therein. All you can do is whatever you eat, because that's what it says in the scripture. No work may be done, save a man may eat. And that's a scripture as well. I didn't put it up here, but if any brethren wants to put in there to let them know so people don't think, well, you're breaking it. So the first day of the week, notice it's the first day. I mean, boy, if it just said of the week, it would make sense. But in the first day shall have a holy convocation. Verse 8, you do for 7 days. And then the seventh day is a holy convocation. You do no servile work. So work's perfect. The 15th is a holy convocation, right? We call it a long weekend. You're coming off of a Sabbath. Then the first day of the week is also an annual Sabbath, a high Sabbath, a very special Sabbath. And then you have, that's the first day. And for 7 days, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The 21st is the seventh day. Oh, it happens to be a 7th-day Sabbath as well, a holy convocation, working out again perfectly in harmony with Jah's words. Nothing is, messing up. There's no 7th-day Sabbath in between the festival of Passover. Only the first day can be holy, and the 7th day can be holy. So there's no, wandering calendar where if you have a calendar that doesn't follow what I'm teaching you, you might have 3 holy days. Like you might have the first day is holy, and say that's a Monday, and then the 7th-day Sabbath comes, and then 2 more days later you have to keep the 7th day of Passover, and that's 3 holy days, not 2. The first day and the 7th day. All right, so this 7th day here is a holy convocation. It's a Sabbath. And the scriptures are going to prove that as well. All right, as we continue. So we just read this verse 23:8, right? 7th day as a holy convocation. We just read that. Jah spake unto Moshe, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, when you be come into the land which I give you, and you shall reap the harvest thereof, then you shall bring a sheaf of the first fruits of your harvest unto the priest, and he shall wave the sheaf before Jah to be accepted for you. Look what it says here. On the morrow after the Sabbath, the priest shall wave it. So common sense lets us know right off the bat, the morrow or the day or the morning after the Sabbath is the first day of the week, because it's giving you the Sabbath. But some people might say, well, is that Sabbath the first day of Passover or the 7th day? Well, if it was the first day, the morrow after the Sabbath would be the 2nd day of the week. But the waving of the sheep has to be on the first day of the week in order to have this count. And I'll show you how it works continually. All right, so the morrow after the Sabbath, right? So again, we have our calendar. Remember, we got to the 21st. That's the 7th and holy day of Passover. And it says, we just read this verse, and he shall wave the sheaf before Jah to be accepted for you on the morrow after the Sabbath. So the week-long festival is coming in. After the 7th day, the Sabbath, the very next day is the waving of the sheaf. Makes sense. Some people, though, they wave the sheaf like sometime within the Passover. But that's like 3 things again within one. It talks about the Passover, then it says, all right, moving on, now when you reap the land, and so on and so forth. So this is talking about the waving of the sheaf that we just read has to, always will, and it's like an anchor as well, occur on the first day of the week. It can't be any other day of the week. Would it make no sense? Again, I'll show you why. Our scriptural sense. All right, so what we see here, we're still in the bib. Our 7th, 14th, 21. Here's our Sabbath. Here's the morrow, the 22nd at the bottom left. That's the 50-day count begins. That's the 50-day count to the Feast of Pentecost, or first fruits. So let's say here we have the morrow after the Sabbath, the sheaf. This is the 7th-day Sabbath right here. So it's connected to Passover. It's the day after the 7th day of unleavened bread, which is the waving of the sheaf. And again, we have our scripture again, on the morrow after the Sabbath. So thus far, for a second, I hope you see this, because if I go on and you can't see it from here, the connection will not be made. But I think it's been pretty clear so far, an understanding. So we're at the 22nd of Abib. We haven't even got to the end of this month. But again, we're going to continue to utilize scripture. So this sheaf, again, is the morrow after the Sabbath. Again, look at it. The day after the Sabbath, the 7th day of unleavened bread. All right. So we read all of these. Remember the more after the Sabbath, verse 11, more after the Sabbath. And the verses 12 and 13 are just what you were, what you're supposed to do, the ordinances of it and everything. We don't have to read that, but it's there for you to read. We're going to go to verse 14. And you shall eat neither bread, nor parched corn, nor green ears until the self same day that ye have brought an offering unto your Elohim. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations and all your dwellings. So remember this, you shall neither eat bread or parched corn or green ears. Verse 15. And you shall count unto you from the morrow after the Sabbath, from the day that you brought the sheaf of the wave offering, 7 Sabbaths shall be complete. Even unto the morrow or the day or morning after the 7th Sabbath shall you number 50 days, and you shall offer a new meat or food offering unto Jah. So before I get to the chart, you see how things are working. So from verse 11, right, the more after the Sabbath, and then when you get to verse 15, it's the same talk. Just in between there's just the ordinances and the sacrifices. But it's, again, you have to count. I want you to see that it says count. Don't look up in the sky. You're supposed to count this festival in order to work out when it's supposed to occur. And this is what God has given us, this wisdom and his spirit to count. I know we all can count, but just like how Daniel had to use books to count and number years, it's important. So you shall count from the morrow after the Sabbath. You have to count 7 Sabbaths. All right. So let's go back to our chart. So here's now a full Abib, right? Oops, sorry. And remember, we're now at the morrow after the Sabbath. And it says now you have to begin a count from the day you brought the wave sheaf offering. Makes sense. So that means that's the first day of the week. And what do you have to count? 7 Sabbaths or 7 complete weeks. See, a week in scripture is from the first day to the 7th day. Even though some people might say, like today, I might say, oh, I'll see you next week, even though next week is starting tonight. It's not just arbitrary 7 days. So, last thing I want to say about before I continue this count, you notice that the first day of creation is from 1 to 7. And now you're noticing that this Passover is also patterned off of the creation week, right? Because the 14th is a Sabbath. So the first day of the Passover occurs on the first day of the week, just like creation. So the creation week is the standard for the week-long festivals. And there's 2 week-long festivals. The one we just covered, Passover and unleavened bread. And then the other one is called the Feast of Tabernacles and the 8th day. They begin on the first day of the week, that festival as well, and goes through the 7 days, and the 8th day is also on the first day of the week. So we see here in this Passover festival, we have the 7 days of unleavened bread, and then we have this kind of this extra, this 8th day where something occurs after that Sabbath. So now that we're on this day, we can see that if we want to begin counting Sabbaths from this first day of the week, the 50-day count, the waving of the sheaf, obviously the first week is right here. And that means day 28 of Abib would be the first Sabbath, as you see on the screen, or day 7 of the count to Pentecost so far. Let me see what time I got here. Okay. All right. So let's move on from that. So we have to prove this 28-day month kind of thing. So we teach that Abib is 28 days, but some people might say, hey, man, how do you know it's not 29, 30, 31? Well, we know at least it's more than 22 days because of the scripture here, Daniel 10, and the 4 and 20th day of the first month, which you just see me highlight, simply put there. I just put that there because that's almost as far as you get in the numbering of a month, the 24th. Okay, so again, some people might ask, why is it not 29, 30, 31? How do you know it is on the Sabbath? And I know you're showing this perfection of sevens, but still, it doesn't prove that Abib ends on the 28th or a Sabbath. So again, our options are 29. And remember, the 29, 30-day month thing is out the door. No 29-day month, so it's either the option of 30 or 31 if you wanted to say it. All right, so this is what I'm going to prove in the next couple of minutes right here. The second month of Jah's Almanac. Now, Abib has 28 days and ends on the Sabbath as I'm teaching it. And Ziph, the second month, starts on the first day of the week. And Exodus chapter 16 is the scriptural proof. So again, looking at how I'm showing you, this is what I'm going to prove right now. So again, Ziph beginning on the first day of the week. And I don't know if you've ever heard of the Passover in the second month, but I probably will cover it as well. But it starts on the 14th at evening as well. And as you can see, it'd be on the 15th, 7 days of unleavened bread in the second month. Almost, and look how it just lines up perfectly with the Passover in Abib, right? But let's go into this. So we got Abib, 28. We saw this chart already. Ziph, 31, Sivan, and 30. Let's keep bringing these back up so you can see what I'm going to be proving now. Again, Ziph. And notice I've highlighted 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21. All right. Exodus 16:1 says, and they took their journey from Elim, and all the congregation of the children of Israel came into the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month after the departing out of the land of Egypt. So what we're going to read here now is these events that happened at the 15th day as we got getting into it. So they're coming in and they're settling, right? You understand? So the 14th day of the month is just ended. The 15th is coming on. And remember, Jah has not introduced his 7-day Sabbath to them yet. It's happening right now. And please, you can read all through 6. I'm just bringing out the verses that are dealing with this number count, all right? That way. Then said John to Moses, behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a certain rate every day, that I may prove them whether they walk in my law or not, or no. And it shall come to pass that on the 6th day they shall prepare that which they bring in, and it shall be twice as much as they gather daily, because he's not going to give them on the Sabbath, because right now he's teaching them the Sabbath. Verse 29, see, for that Jah hath given you the Sabbath, therefore he giveth you on the 6th day the bread of 2 days. Abide ye every man in his place, let no man go out of his place on the 7th day. So the people rested on the 7th day. So let's bear in mind here, it's the 15th of the second month, and Jah now is teaching them how to keep the Sabbath, right? So from the 15th of the second month, as he's that day, it's going to be 6 days, counting right from there, right? And then the 7th day is going to be no manna. So he's teaching them what the Sabbath is. And this happened for 40 years through the wilderness. So what you see here, I got Abib up top, teaching that Abib ends on 28th. But now we have the 16th, the 15th of the second month. It's on the first day of the week. You might say, well, why are you putting it on the first day of the week? Well, Jah said from the 15th, he's going to rain manna every day. And that was actually a nighttime in the 15th. And it was on the morning of the 15th, manna came, morning 16, 17, 18, 19. And then on the 20th, he gave double, and they had enough. And on the 21st, he gave none. So what I'm showing you is that from Exodus chapter 16, we can conclude and understand that the 15th had to have been a first day of the week, because Jah is teaching them his Sabbath. I hope you understand what I'm saying. So it's from that 15th to the 21st is a 7-day weekly cycle, and we know he never gave any manna on that, on the 21st, let's call it, right? The 7th day. So when we're looking at this chart now, remember, I like to have these blanks. So obviously, if this is the 15th, the first day of the week is the 15th, then what would that make the week previous to it? And even the day before, which is a Sabbath, right? What would that make it? So we have the 15th day of the second month after the departing of Egypt, and the people shall go out and gather a certain rate every day. And then Jah hath given you the Sabbath, therefore he giveth you on the 6th day, right? Double. So we have double on the 20th, and we have none on the Sabbath day, starting from the 15th of the second month. So again, the day before that should be the 14th. And then you count backwards, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8. And then what's before the 8th? That would be the 7th, would be that Sabbath. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we get to Ziph beginning on the first day of the week. No other way to look at it. Scripturally, it's beautiful. I give thanks to Jah. But now that is proof, one proof, or a great proof, why a bib ends on the Sabbath and is only 28 days long. Now, if somebody wanted to get silly and say, well, how come it's not 35 days long or 40 days long? Well, it doesn't work like that. That's why. And if it just doesn't work, it's 28 days. You understand? Because we're dealing with a 364-day year. So if it was 35 days long, then that would be mess up the whole 364-day count and would throw it out of whack. So again, I want to let you know what you've seen here so far. You've seen that Abib 1, the creation, we have 28 days right through. The 14th went through the 7th, the 14th, the Passover, the waving of the sheaf, the 20th day, which is the first day of the first Shabbat or Sabbath of the count, right? And then we did the 15th and we count backwards. Ziph has to begin on the first day of the week. I have to emphasize it, I have to hit it home. So you know it's a scriptural thing. Did we look up in the sky? Did we look at any lunar phases? Praise Jah. This might seem so simple and too simple, but we're learning from his word. I trust his word. I believe his word, right? This is what is written up in heaven as far as I'm concerned on the heavenly tablets, his almanac. So looking at this, now, we can see the connection. Ziph begins on the first day of the week because Abib ends on the seventh day of the week. Simple. Weekly cycle is in play. Now, remember I talked about that Passover patterned off the second month, right? As well, just to show you. Now, what I'm showing you with the Passover the second month, just to show you how Abib and Ziph are very equivalent, are very similar, that they both begin on the first day of the week, and they're right connected to each other. And this is why the Passover is the only festival that can be kept in another month if you miss the Passover. If you miss the Day of Atonement, you miss it. You can't keep it in the 8th month. Tabernacles, Memorial of Trumpets, the Feast of First Fruits, you miss those, you miss it. But if you miss this, you're able to, in the month of Bib, due to an unclean of a dead body or a journey too far away, so to speak, but for any reason, you're able to keep it. And I'll read the scriptures in a second. But again, it's because look how similar they are. They're like up until the 4th week of each month, they're exactly the same, except that Ziph, just because it's 31 days long now, that's where the change starts to come in. Or not change, but the pattern starts to grow. But they're exactly same for 28 days. So let's read these verses. Again, the Passover in the second month occurs on the first day of the week as well, just like Abib. Numbers 9, verse 10. Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, if any man of you or your posterity shall be unclean by reason of a dead body or be in a journey afar off, yet he shall keep the Passover unto Jah. The 14th day of the second month, when? At even they shall keep it and eat it with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. All right, we just read that. They shall leave none of it according to the morning, nor break any bone of it. According to what? All the ordinances of the Passover they shall keep it. And remember, Leviticus 23 said, in the 14th day of the first month at evening is Jah's Passover sacrifice. So you have the verses here complementing each other. Notice it says that you have to keep it according to all the ordinances of the Passover. That means that the ordinance of it beginning on the first day of the week also has to be intact. And the first day being holy and the 7th day being holy. Those 2 holy days in the Passover week. Praise Jah. So again, another confirmation, again, when we look at these months, again, the 14th at evening, remember we taught that, we showed that is at the evening you sacrifice it, then you begin the 7 days of unleavened bread. Well, as if you do the same thing, 14th at evening, according to all the ordinances, you have now eating unleavened bread for 7 days as well. Perfect. But now let's look at something here in particular. Remember, we waved the sheaf. So we had the waving of the sheaf beginning on the 22nd, which was the morrow after the Sabbath. And so we would have the 28th being that first Sabbath count, right? 1 Sabbath. Then we have 2 Sabbaths, because now we know that Ziph begins on the first day of the week. 2 Sabbaths, 3 Sabbaths, 4 Sabbaths, and 5 Sabbaths that we have now. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, 5 Sabbaths, so to speak. We're still counting those 7 Sabbaths. And understanding now these 7 Sabbaths, which is going to complete our first 3-month year. And that's what I wanted to cover. I wanted to cover, let me just make sure I got time. Yeah, we're good. We should be able to finish off the third month and have there beautifully. And then when we get into the next week, you'll see how Purim comes with this. All right. So what we have to do now is we're trying to say, hey, can Ziph is Ziph 31 days or 30 days, right? We don't have to get into no more 29 or 28. That's done. We're 31, 30. That's all we have to prove. And remember when we did the count with Noah, it began from the 17th day of the second month Ziph. So again, this is a 31-day month. So let's look at the third month of Jazz Almanac. So here we are again. We did a Bib, 28 days long. Ziph, starting on the first day of the week. We got our Passover in the second month. We have the 28th is a Sabbath, as we know. And now we're trying to get into Sivan, proving that Sivan begins on the fourth day of the week, because we proved that Abib and Ziph begin on the first day of the week. Now we have to do the fourth day of the week and also show that Ziph has 31 days. And you could even show Sivan of 30 days if we have time. Okay, so remember, we're counting the Pentecost. And you shall count unto you from the morrow after the Sabbath, from the day that you brought the sheaf of the wave offering, 7 Sabbaths shall be complete. Even unto the morrow after the 7th Sabbath shall you number 50 days. So common sense lets us know that 7th Sabbath is a 7-day week. The morrow after it is the first day of the week. So the count began from the first day of the week, the morrow after the Sabbath, and it ends on the 7th, the morrow after the 7th Sabbath. Isn't the job perfect? So perfect. And we never looked up in the sky yet, nor need to. All right. So the second month ends on the third day of the week and has 31 days. This is the proof. All right. So we got to we saw this already. We got to here. This is our 5th Sabbath, right? And then we have 3 more days. Now, when we look at it, this is how it works out in the Jah's way. I'm going to show you another way, but the wrong way. So what I want you to look at again is that I'm proving that the second month has 31 days in it rather than 30. So it can have 30 or 31, but it has to have 31 in order to coincide with this count and have it be perfect. So if it has 31 and it ends on the third day of the week, that means the third month, you know by now, that should start on the fourth day of the week because it's connected, right? Without breaking the cycle. So then we'd have, again, this 28th here is the 5th Sabbath. Then we would have the 6th Sabbath, which is the 4th. Then we'd have the 7th Sabbath, which is the 11th. And we have the morrow after the 7th Sabbath is the Feast of First Fruits or Pentecost. Perfect. And look at the number. Jazz Festival is on the 3rd month, the 12th day. And that 12th day is the Feast of First Fruits. It's perfect because remember, the Feast of First Fruits, and most people who know calendars know that the Feast of First Fruits, Pentecost, or the Feast of Weeks, are all the same thing. It has to be on the first day of the week because it's tomorrow after the 7th Sabbath. And if you don't have a weekly cycle or if you use lunar cycles, it's going to be messed up. And 12, 12 is a big number for Jah things. Now, let's suppose somebody can argue and say, hey, you know what? You said that Ziph, the second month, has 31 days. Well, what if it had 30 days? Why can't it have 30 days? Well, let's say you wanted to make it have 30 days. But what would happen is that when you look at it now, you look down low. So remember, up top is in green is the good Jah's almanac. Red is this erroneous. So Ziph has 31 days in Jah's true things. If it had 30 days, that means it would end on the second day of the week, and that we would have now the third month beginning on the third day of the week. But when we count our Sabbath, so we have our 6th Sabbath, then we have our 7th Sabbath, which is the 12th, and then we're going to have the 13th be the holy day. Nah, none of Jah's things deal with 13 at all. We don't have 13 lunar months. We don't have 13 nothing. 12 is Jah's number. You understand? And that's why that number has to show a perfection. And this is something you should know, and this is very true. That is the exact day that the Messiah was born. He was born on the 12th day of the third month in that evening. That's right, 100%. Not any other time. And I know people, you can go Google it. Nobody really knows or anything like that. All right, whatever it is, Jah knows, and Jah's sharing the truth. That's all I can tell you right now. I'm nobody special. I don't do not holy or anything, but that's just how it goes. And we've been teaching it for a long time. And every time somebody comes to bounce against it, they bounce off. It just can't work. So what I'm saying is this count here at the bottom, work. It has to be this, because you want 12 to be perfect with Jah's perfection of his festival, Pentecost, right? So look at the first 3 months that you have up there. Look at it. Perfect. Proven. No solar. No lunar. All it is people can doubt it and have no, faith in what they're being shown. But I showed scripture, showed numbers, right? This is how it goes. This is how it goes right here. The first 3 months, very perfect. How much time I got left? Okay, a couple minutes. So let's look at this again from the way we just looked at it before. A bib starts on the first day of the week, like creation, right? It has the 7th, the 14th, 21st, and then we have the 28th. So watch, the numbers still are there. But remember, after the 21st, which is the 7th day of Passover, we have the waving of the sheep occurring on the first day of the week. It's day 1 of that 50-day count. All of the yellow that you see is the part of the 50-day count. When you come over, remember, this is a bib 28. That's the first Sabbath. And then after that, Ziph starts on the first day of the week, as we just showed. Then we continue counting. The 7th is the 2nd, 14th is the 3rd, 24th, 28th is the 5th. Then after the 28th, we have 3 days to 31. Sivan starts on the 4th day of the week. That means the 4th is the 6th Sabbath, the 11th is the 7th Sabbath, and the morrow after that 7th Sabbath is the 12th. And that's day 50 of Pentecost, the Most High's great festival, and the time that the Messiah was born on earth as a fleshly being. Wow. So there's all your Sabbaths. Remember, you count 7 Sabbaths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Look how everything is falling into play. The 7-day weekly cycle is perfect. Nothing is messed up, right? That way. And then we know, from looking at this now, you should ask yourself, all right, since the 2 grays at the bottom, that means the 4th month has to begin on the 6th day of the week. And 4th month, 6th day of the week. And so you have 1 and 2 right here. And yes, that is very true. The 4th month has to begin on this day of the week. But later on, not today, I'd have to show you, like, well, how come it's not 30? And I probably could just think about it right now. You would say, how do you know that Sivan is not 31 days, right? And I'll just tell you right now, which I don't need to even go any further, because you already have an understanding. If it was 31 days, that means right after 30, underneath the number 24, that would be number 31. And then what would make that the 4th month? The 4th month would then start on the 7-day Sabbath, and it can't. There's only 1 month that starts on the 7-day Sabbath, which is Jah's 7th month, Ethanim. Praise Jah. No other month can start on the Sabbath. So that eliminates it by default, where it has to have 30 days. Abib has to have 28 days. Ziph has to have 31 days. And Saban has to have 30 days for the first 3 months of Jah's scriptural year. Praise Jah. Isn't it amazing? He needs to be glorified. So here we got a bib again, just looking at it as I close down, shut it down. This is a bib, fully 28-day month, filled up with all of the scriptures and everything, and the Passover and the Messiah sacrifice and all of that. We marched through this, right? Through Ziph, we went through, counting the festivals, all of Ziph, the 7th Sabbath, 3rd Sabbath, 4th Sabbath. This is how it looks. Then when we get to Sivan, again, we had the 11th, and then the 12th is when the Messiah was born. And that's how the month looks. That's how the month looks. And remember, the first day of summer begins on the 6th day of the week. It cannot begin on the Sabbath. All right. And so let me just find this one slide to just have it all. We've showed it to you before. So now when you see them together, you will know. Again, that's Jah's first 3 months of Jah's almanac, of his almanac. Praise Jah. Oh, I didn't even put in my other line. It must look so dark. Well, make sure you give a thumbs up. If you got something from that study, let me know. I really appreciate it, because it's one of the things hard to teach. It has to be slow. You might have to, watch the video over again or go over the verses, but I don't know if there's any other way, unless the Most High guides us somehow. But I pray He opens up your understanding to see these first 3 months. And the same way that I did these 3 months is the same way, and it's less time. The first 3 months take the longest. The other months, they kind of fall into place pretty good, beginning from the 7th and dealing with everything else that way. So I will cover that next week, along with something with Purim. And we got more about calendars to talk about. Now, as we get into the future, just spare our lives, in terms of the rest of Adar, we have to prove why February is equivalent to Abib. And we've done that many times. But another new style, new fashion to kind of solidify it. And after when Adar is over, I'll have to say this: when Adar is over, I'm bringing down all of these videos, in a sense, just to remake them, or I'll probably remake them, and I'm going to make it into like a video lesson, an almanac lesson, or movie or documentary, so to speak. Praise God. Thank you. Let's up Jennifer. I'm looking in here, see what I'm seeing. Pentecost, Andrea, yes. Praise God. Give thanks, Andrea. Thanks, Jennifer. Yeah, man, thanks. Thank you. Praise God, yes. Yeah. All right. All right, family. That's that for now. Thank you for tuning in. Everything. Again, if there's any comments or questions, I'll take them now. No, wait a minute. All right. That's it then. Have a good week, everyone. And where are we, the 9th? Now we're in the 10th. Okay. All right, I'm going to shut it down. All right. Shalom.